I'm joined by Tonia Haddix's attorney, Justin Gelfand. Justin, thank you for being with us tonight. Again, I watched the docuseries, so I sort of know the basics. But like, it seemed pretty clear she wasn't supposed to have any more chimps. How did this other chimp now end up in the basement?
She has fully accepted responsibility for the crimes that she's committed. She understands that she faces sentencing. The important thing to remember here is that this is not the first time that TV does not fully reflect reality. And in this particular case, Tonia's life has been a lifetime of struggle, of hardship. She was the victim of abuse as a child. She was the victim of domestic violence as an adult, so severe in instances where she actually, like many women in that situation, had to go to court to get a court order for protection. And in this particular instance, where humans let Tonia down, animals filled that void of safety and security when humans were not safe. And at the end of the day, what's important to remember here is that this was not a crime motivated by greed or money, not to excuse anything, but this was ultimately motivated by a love that Tonia has for her beloved pets. And in this case, that's why she finds herself where she finds herself.
So can she just not stay away from chimps? I mean, I would think she would have known at this point that she was really going to get herself into serious trouble.
Well, obviously, everyone has to follow court orders, and she finds herself 2 weeks away from a federal sentencing hearing, currently incarcerated because she admitted and fully accepted responsibility for the violations of law that she committed. But again, the important thing to not lose context of is that unlike so many people who find themselves in the criminal justice system, this was not a crime involving money, guns, drugs, violence, harm to anyone, harm to any animals. This was a crime involving making misrepresentations to a court all about a chimp, Tonka, who she had a genuine, sincere relationship with, no different from the way many of us do with dogs and cats and other animals that we love and that we adore and that are members of our family.
So I hear what you're saying, that these TV docuseries don't always tell the full story, and they tell a version of the story. But at the same time, when you watch it, you see the Tonka was in the cage in the basement, and I mean they're not. You say like dogs and cats, but they're really not, right? They're intelligent. They're like so close to being human, and that he was locked up in that cage down there. And now to hear that there was another chimp locked up in the basement. I mean, I get that she has issues, like you're saying, and she's had a rough life, but I think there is a victim here, isn't there? Aren't the chimps the victims? It seems unfair to say that there's no victim.
Well, ultimately, she has never been charged with any federal crime or any crime at all that involves any alleged harm to animals. And I think that's important. There are federal statutes, the Department of Justice. I'm a former federal prosecutor. The prosecutor on this case is an aggressive prosecutor. And if they had evidence that she harmed animals, one would have to presume that they would have charged her with those crimes. And she's never been charged with any crime involving any alleged harm to an animal. And that's an important distinction with a difference in this case.
Have you, I mean, obviously you have, when you've talked to Tonia while she's been behind bars, I mean, how is she doing? Do you think that, like, maybe now that she's been incarcerated, she's finally getting the message that she probably should not have any more chimps?
Obviously, I can't discuss any conversations that are privileged that I've had with my client. This is an ongoing legal proceeding. I wish I could answer every question. I can't fully comment on that. But what I can comment on is that she fully understands that she's 2 weeks from yesterday, she's going to stand before a federal court in St. Louis, Missouri for sentencing. And ultimately, she fully accepts responsibility. And that's important. But it's important that we also not lose context of what this was and what this wasn't. And in this particular instance, realize for Tonia, these pets are like her family. And like many of us have with dogs and cats, at the end of the day, we'll do anything for our family. To be clear, that's not an excuse, but it is an explanation, and it provides context. And that's what federal sentencing, as you know, is all about.
Yeah, and when you watch the docuseries, I mean, it's hard not to feel sort of bad for Tonia. I mean, like you said, she doesn't come across as a bad person, But at the same time, it's hard not to feel really bad for the animals too, just because, you know, you see them in the cage in the basement. You know what I mean?
Look, I appreciate you recognizing that Tonia is not a bad person. This is a person who's dedicated her life to helping others. She was a nurse working in healthcare. She's dedicated her life to loving animals, and she has no criminal history prior to this case. This is her first time ever at 55 years old that she's had a run-in with the justice system. These are serious allegations. She fully accepted responsibility, but she's a person who really has a very positive side. And I think that it's important that people recognize that.
Well, we will keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens at the sentencing. We appreciate you coming on, Justin. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.